Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley, and here's your host, Alan Mosley.
Welcome back to the Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley, and this is episode 22.
22, baby. We ain't gonna have no special birthdays anymore now.
We're done with those. Yeah,
it's all getting old from here.
You know, I'm just gonna ruin the whole thing. So we're actually doing a double header today.
Yeah, that's why the shirt.
I didn't change shirts.
I didn't either.
This show is so amateur. It's such garbage. You're supposed to change shirts so it looks like you're filming on a different day with a different guest and the whole thing.
For that.
Yeah. No, that's totally what it is. They're too smart for that. So if you want to catch us on social media, it's facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. You can follow me on Twitter at Alan M. Mosley. And then you can get all of that and more, including our episodes, show notes, donation link, hint, hint, at thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
That's right.
And speaking of who you should be following on social media, I'll tell you one of my favorite people.
Who's your favorite
that I follow on social media. And that is Mance Rayder. Mance Rayder, who is the host of the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast.
There he is.
The author, now author of many books, such as the newest one, The Kids Are Not All Right, a meme-enhanced primer on encroaching Marxism in the West. That sounds so positive and motivational.
Happy.
We're going to get to that. So in the meantime, Mance Rayder is back. Mance, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Mance.
Thanks for having me back. How's it going, guys?
Good.
It's going great, and I just want to get this out here right off the bat, so there's just no uneasiness. So, an infamous moment in the history of the Gold Standard.
And what is that?
Is when Mance Rayder made his first appearance on the show, and you know us, we're just such G-rated, friendly kid type folks on the Gold Standard, and woe be it to Alan Mosley. He made the comment of, so Mance, what do you think about this guy wanting your guns? And Mance said, and I'm going to try to do my best Mance Rayder impression that I can. Mance said, and I quote, "Yeah, but he's not going to come get him. He's a fucking pussy."
Jeez. I hope my wife isn't listening when this happens.
No. You're going to have to do
But that was a repeat. That was a repeat of last time. So at least it's just a quote now.
Yeah.
I'll try to pretend my mom's in the room, but my mom had a worse mouth than me. So.
Well, for one, it's fine. We don't care.
We don't care. Man.
It's really actually, you know what? You're not the first because Sherry Voluntary was on our show and we were talking about Jeff Sessions, and she called Jeff Sessions a twat. So that was technically the first vulgar thing that was said.
Well, that's a really good word. I love that word.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely fits the man really well. I mean, I mean,
it's better than Keebler Elf.
Well, yeah. I mean, because that's not even a cut down, because the Keebler Elves provide a valuable service to the free market.
Man, I miss Magic Middles. Those were so good.
Miss Magic. Anyway. So we got to get this. We're already way off the rails. So another thing too, real quick. So Mance has got some shows coming up. So he can't just be shooting the bull with us for hours on end.
Right.
Which quite frankly is already what we're off to the races with. Is just shooting the bull. So
it's all right. I mean, I'm just as happy with something unstructured as I am structured. So.
Well, boy, you have come to the right place, my friend. So I want to say I was gonna, you know what, I'm gonna minimize the book real quick. We're not talking about your stinking book. I got a bone to pick with you, Mance.
That's fun.
You were doing a live stream with the absolutely epic Walter Block. Absolutely epic Walter Block, and you were soliciting comments and questions live on YouTube, which we got to do that. We got to do something live.
Sure.
And so I was like, ooh, it was still streaming. I haven't missed it. So I get on there, and there's Walter, and Walter's just running around his office picking up books and articles and everything else. And
MAGA hats.
Yeah, and Mance is just sort of he's trying to zone in on it. Well, what's Walter doing now? And there were people in the stream offering questions, and I said, I got it, Mance. Ask Walter, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh.
And Mance just flips me the bird.
Wow.
I didn't even get my question. So what? How dare this guy treat his loyal audience members like that? So Mance,
anyone who's followed me on Twitter for more than 2 days should expect that response.
So this is your second appearance with us. So it's old hat now. So I feel like we can level with each other like gentlemen. So is a hot dog a sandwich?
See, the funny thing is, when I eat hot dogs, I don't eat them with buns. I just eat them solo. So it'd be more phallic than anything.
So see, no, but this is an important distinction. So we're going to do a whole mini series on is a hot dog a sandwich, and we're going to ask our guests. This is the end of the gold standard. So
is a pierogi a sandwich?
What's that?
Is a knish a sandwich?
Now
it's more like a hot dog.
That's for my Jewish friends out there.
So, you said you're just eating the literal hot dog,
the wiener,
not a hot dog in a
meat
bun
portion. Yes.
Right. So I would say. Because the only reason I ask is because I have the right answer and everyone else is wrong.
Oh,
so
here we go.
So the actual meat length, a hot dog is just a piece of sausage.
Yes.
And the way you eat it without a bun means you're eating sausage.
Yes.
But
I don't eat it with a hot dog bun. I eat it with a hamburger bun.
How the heck do you do that? Do you put like 4 on it, or is it like sliced in half and drawn and quartered or something?
It's a secret.
Man. You're going to have to show us how to do that now. That's impressive.
Have you ever seen a sex change operation?
Oh, man. Now you just ruined it.
So I got to admit, I'm way off guard now. So what I was gonna say is that if you're literally just eating the meat like Mance does,
yes,
then that's a hot dog.
That's the Deutsch way
That's
to do
sausage.
It, yes.
But if you're eating a hot dog in a bun, that's a sandwich because it's 2 pieces of bread over the content.
1 piece of bread.
Wait, it's 1 piece of bread.
Everybody knows.
Dissected.
And if you go to Nathan's in New York, the bun actually looks like white bread.
Oh.
The sides have crusts on them, just like white bread.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is the bottom is flat, so that it stands up straight.
Nice,
but
it's like them square tacos.
But hold on, but now you just vile excuse of a person. You eat it with a hamburger bun, so that's definitely a sandwich.
Now he's making me think I should put one in a taco and put chili over it.
I grew up really poor, so it's like you just did whatever the hell you could, whatever you could fucking find, you know. And it's like, I mean, more often than not, when I was growing up, it was in a friggin' piece of white bread.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. You know, I mean, that's the way I grew up. You know, I mean, it's just, we didn't. And back at that time, what was it? 8 hot dogs came in a package, but you could only buy 12 buns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I couldn't do friggin' the division on that. You know, it's like, how many do you have to buy in order? Okay, if I buy 2 sets of 2 things of hot dogs and 2 things of buns, shit, I'm still gonna have 4 left over.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's terrible.
So it's better to just get some white bread and deal with it. And just go totally ghetto.
Totally.
But if you're gonna take just 1 piece of bread that cradles the hot dog, is it now a taco?
Wow.
No,
that's
then it's
deep,
a corn
man.
dog.
It's what?
Then it's a corn dog.
Corn dog.
But I thought a corn dog was the whole thing has been deep fried. I mean, we're in the South, all right? So everything's a corn dog, really, if you think about it. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I feel like we've really touched on a lot of important libertarian issues.
The masses on hot dog production.
Hey, I could talk about my wiener all day. So.
Yeah, well, and really, far be it for us to say what you can and can't do, because we're all about that. So we're gonna try really hard. Yeah, just
segue away from the wieners.
So that was part 1. So we're gonna roll a commercial.
I'm really shocked that any of this even makes it into.
No, Mance. Now obviously you don't know us, because the way that the gold standard works is of course Blake is our producer, and Blake does such a great job. But
I try.
But Blake's got a day job too, and he's very giving of his time and resources to help us put on the show.
Yeah.
So the show that you see on YouTube is literally from the time he clicks record to the time he clicks stop.
Yeah.
So make no mistake about it. This is all going in, my friend.
This is real, man. This is straight through, vamped all the way.
I haven't had anything to drink yet either, so it's like, well, this is you're getting the real me.
So with that, since we're getting the real Mance today,
Mance.
The Kids Are Not All Right, a meme-enhanced primer on encroaching Marxism in the West. So this is your second book. The last time we had you on, we talked about your first book, and this one was basically done. We just caught you right before, like, the official published date.
Right.
So where have we moved on to? So Freedom Through Memedom is out. That was successful. So you've moved on to The Kids Are Not All Right. So take us in the journey to. So where are we going in book number 2?
Well, what's funny is the Kids Are Not All Right was actually written in my head before I wrote Freedom Through Memedom. It was the first book I wanted to do. I knew exactly what I was going to do with that book too. I already had the chapter titles in my head. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to make a comment on. Basically, I'm making a comment on the culture. I'm making a comment on what we see coming off of college campuses. Mm-hmm. I talk about the history of Marxism. I talk about how, in the first chapter, how it's crept its way into the political process, into everything in our lives that we deal with in the society, from the government to press to, I end the chapter talking about Al Gore and his theft, theft system there of global warming hysteria. Mm. But then after I do that, I go on to talking about college professors who are the real villains in the book, talking about what they're teaching to kids, how kids are hearing it, how they're interpreting it, and how they're taking it out into the streets, and how they're taking it out into the real world. And when I say the real world, I'm talking about the press. I'm talking about all the way up to human resources departments in the biggest companies in the world. Mm-hmm. And seeing this political correctness. I work for an international company. I've had to take these courses. You have to sign that if you violate any of these things, if someone wants you to use a certain pronoun and you don't use it, that you will be, you can be terminated. It will follow you. So it's basically a warning. I wrote a couple purposes. My main purpose for writing it was for teenagers and kids in college, so that they could know what to expect, know what they're hearing, but also for adults who have not been paying attention to this. Yeah. Like I have. I mean, it's been out there, it's been in the news, but unless you've been looking for it, it's not something that it's not something that most people are aware of. And even a lot of college students, like I talk to college students down here in the South, and University of Georgia, a lot of the kids aren't aware of that because depending, like if you get in a sorority or a fraternity, you're not going to get a lot of that shit in the South. At University of Georgia, because that's the people I talk to the most. Mm-hmm. You don't see it at Georgia Tech very much because that's Georgia Tech, very technical school, a lot of autistic kids, and. Wow, is that good?
What you mean? A lot of libertarians?
Yeah, there's a lot of libertarians there. But a lot of engineers, a lot of people who have a real hard time carrying on a conversation. But we need these people. Yes. And because they're some of the smartest among us, and they know how to build things. But it's really just a book that it's a lot of history, but a lot of my commentary. Mm-hmm. And and for some reason, I don't know why, people seem to like my commentary. They listen to my podcast. They love, everybody loved the first book. There was no, it was funny because when you create something, you have an idea of whether it's good or not to you. Mm-hmm. Until you start getting feedback from other people, you really don't know. You really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I get you. I want to read this real quick. So this is from the foreword by the comedian Dave Smith, and really, I'm starting to think it's unfair to say comedian Dave Smith, because I feel like some people who don't know Dave are thinking, oh, he's just a comedian. I don't think that's fair. It's really more like comedian and political thinker commentator Dave Smith at this point. Mm-hmm. So he wrote, "It is patently absurd that the case against socialism still has to be made. One who identifies as a Marxist should be treated as seriously seriously as someone debating the merits of slavery or longing for the days of the bubonic plague. We should all thank God every day that we were not born into such a hell on earth. I mean, those Dem's pretty serious fighting words, but I feel like you would say, I mean, if anything, that's too nice because we can't be harsh enough.
Yeah, I mean, Dave did a really good job with the forward. I knew he was the perfect guy to do it because when I want to listen to someone talk about the culture, I want to hear either like Paul Gottlieb or Dave, and Dave is just so. He can be funny about it. That's the great thing about it is he injects humor into a subject that's not very funny. And I mean, when he sent it over to me, I started reading it and I read it all the way through. I was just I was floored. My first book, Scott Horton wrote the forward / what some people would call an announcement on your first book. And then Dave Smith writes the forward on my second book, and I'm just it floors me that people. I mean, especially someone like Scott Horton, who's got years and years and years, almost 5,000 interviews now, would take the time to do that and to say that I did a great job and that he really liked the book, and then for Dave to say, yeah, let's do this, and then the day it gets released or a couple days after, come on the show and we'll talk about it and everything. That just it floors me that people now my podcast is really taking off, and it's amazing. It used to be that people who listened to my podcast mostly were people who followed me on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I would announce that my podcast was up, and then I would start seeing people downloading it. Now I've gotten to the point where I release it, and I don't put any announcements out there on Facebook or on Twitter or anything like that, and I just see the downloads coming in from mostly the United States, but most of my episodes are getting downloaded in 15, 20 different countries. Wow. And it floors me to think that people actually want to hear what I it's still kind of a struggle because I'm just to me I'm just that guy who's constantly questioning and examining himself to see that I'm doing the right thing and seeing that I'm being consistent. Yeah. And people are glomming onto it, which is really awesome.
We just got done talking to Kevin Gutzman, and one of the things that he had said right at the end of the interview was, it's great to talk to people. It's and kind of shoot the bull on topics that we enjoy discussing. But there's and you can tell me if you have this thing too, where one of the things that's tough is a lot of times there's this depressing mood at the end of a conversation because you just got done talking about shitty Supreme Court justices, or you just got done talking about unconstitutional rulings, or whatever the woes of society are, and then at the end of that conversation you're just kind of like, ugh. Yeah. Because you're just up against so much. I mean, it's so present all the time in your everyday life of look at all of these things that are wrong or and unjust or whatever. But maybe the positive side of that, though, is kind of what you just touched on, that when you're just alone in your house doing your show or living your life, it seems like you're so overwhelmingly outnumbered. But then when you start to produce content, you write books, you make a show, and you start to put it out there, and you start to get feedback from people on Facebook or Twitter saying, yeah, Mance, I really like what you said about this or that. It warms your heart, at least the teeniest tiny little bit of, well, I'm not alone in this. Like, there are other people out there. It's just all these little bitty pockets around the country or the world, and sometimes we can lose sight of how numerous we are. And it's like we're not literally the only two people having this conversation right now. Like, there's plenty of other people doing it too. It's just awash in a sea of commies and statism. Sometimes you lose sight of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I see the download count, and I see it especially from other countries. It makes me feel good that people are out there thinking about these things. They're talking about these things, that they're learning, that they're willing to learn, and that hopefully something that I'm saying is, making a difference, helping them to understand the subject. When I put out my first episode in the Wayback Machine, all the way back in July of last year, I've only been doing a podcast now for 11 months. And episode one of the first was about the police. And one of the first things I talked about was the Supreme Court ruling Warren versus District of Columbia. Now, I don't think I had 40 downloads on that. Mm-hmm. I don't think it got as high as 40. But one person commented, I'd never heard of Warren versus District. I've been a libertarian for a while. I've never heard of Warren versus District of Columbia. Thank you for pointing that out to me. It's just more ammunition when I talk about, just how awful modern policing is. So, right from the start, I got positive feedback, and that helps a lot when you're. I heard Tom Wood say that if you're starting a podcast, if you can get past episode 7, usually things are a-okay. And today, a couple hours ago, I just released episode 116. So
nice.
That was it feels good, and my next podcast that I'm releasing on the weekend is going to be is probably going to be one of my favorites ever. I'm talking to Maggie McNeil. Do you know who Maggie McNeil is?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And we're gonna be talking tomorrow.
So speaking of that, you're getting ready to have on Maggie McNeil, and I know you, because when we last talked, you were closing in on episode 100, which you did episode 100 with Tom Woods. Mm-hmm. You've had on Scott Horton a number of times. You had Gareth Porter on recently, which was another great episode. There's the Walter Block episode where you poo-pooed my question. I'm glad
that that's the only thing you remember.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember. I'll always remember it, because I'll always remember, like, wow, I've never seen a guest get up out of his chair as many times and walk around the room as Walter Block did. Because he was still talking to you in the abstract of you're over there, but he was walking around and.
Well, my favorite part of that, if anybody wants to go look at it on YouTube real quick, is something happened to my voice during that, and the whole episode, it sounds like maybe I'm holding Walter hostage and I'm disguising my voice in some sort of way, and it just sounds like or someone said it was someone referred to it as I was Darth Rayder. Yes.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that one of the really, really cool things about, and I've already enjoyed this, and I love it immensely, because we're up to episode 22. Ooh. So that's practically the same thing as 116.
Sure. Right.
But I love the fact that it has given me an opportunity to get to meet and know some people and have conversations with people that are way, way, way smarter than me, that have spent years and years and years.
Are people smarter than you?
Well, I know. I'm being polite. But people who have written countless books and done research and put hours and hours and years of their life invested into topics, research, anarchy, libertarianism, whatever, that maybe, I would have only known them from afar, but because of a podcast, they've actually sat in the chair and talked to us about these things, and me be able. So instead of us sitting back and thinking to ourselves, man, if I could ask Thomas Jefferson one question, what would it be? And it's like, well, he's not around, but I can have Kevin Gutzman on the show, and I can ask Kevin Gutzman, what would Thomas Jefferson have said? Because if anybody would know the answer to that, it would be him, and so I can ask him. So that's such an awesome thing about having a platform like this. So if you're wondering how Mance feels about gun grabbers, I can just ask Mance how he feels about that instead of presuming what he might think.
Right.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you this real quick. You mentioned other countries. What have you noticed the concentration of your listeners in certain countries other than the U.S.?
Well, one of the first countries to where I started getting reviews on the iTunes section in that country was Australia.
Wow.
Australia is booming with libertarianism, booming with crypto. I just started a couple weeks ago accepting on my website. I have a store set up on my website for my books, and it's for sale only for crypto. And I've already had two orders from Australia for both books.
Wow.
And Australia, Spain. Some guys in Spain, right off the bat. I mean, they were like, they told me, they said, when you set up your podcast, because my first few podcasts were just on YouTube, and then when I decided to start get hosting, they said the Spanish podcast channel, the Spanish podcast app over here is eVook, so can you set it up through eVook? So, Spain, Canada, obviously, Great Britain, obviously. I have someone in Qatar who listens to a couple people in Qatar who listen to every one of my episodes. It's the Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
In Africa.
Wow.
Russia, obviously, Belarus. So it's and pretty much every country in Europe, but mostly the big countries outside of the United States are Canada, Australia, Great Britain, and Spain.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Canada and Great Britain. Of course, Canada and Great Britain in the sphere of the global community. I mean, those are pretty close to the United States. Yeah. Of course, we broke off from Britain, and Canada's our northern neighbor. Racially similar populations and whatnot. But those are very interesting ones that you point out, because anyone who's been watching the news lately can tell you. Those aren't exactly bastions of Western civilization anymore.
Not like they used to be.
Yeah.
They want to ban knives.
Yeah.
How you going to cut your chicken?
Yeah.
With your toes?
It's pretty wild. I mean, when I had Anthony Samaroff from the Scottish Liberty podcast on, we talked and we actually argued a little bit, and he's gotten to the point where he's becoming very closed borders, and I understand. But my question was, how come in the United States we can import those people? We can import the people from the same countries where the people are coming from the countries and going there, and they're having problems with these people becoming violent and becoming radicalized. Yet when they come here, they don't seem to have that. It's much rarer. I mean, they have an epidemic there. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Why can we? Why can the United States? Why can this culture? Let's call it the culture. The government doesn't have anything to do with it. Yeah. Why can this culture accept the same people that Britain is, and they're not becoming radicalized? I mean, I think it's a great. I think it's a great question. I think the same could be asked from the people in Sweden.
Yeah.
So it's not just geography; it's culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question. And speaking of that, and speaking of Mance's infamous comment on gun grabbers, we're bringing back the meme of the week.
Yeah.
So this week's meme of the week is something that Mance is going to recognize. It's a little stick figure there with a hat on. Says, "You can't just call every gun grabber a commie," and he says, "That's where you're wrong, commie."
I have one of those, by the way.
Well, good. I'm glad you do. Well, it just the reason why, I mean, I love that, but we're talking about Western Europe and Canada and some of the things that are going on in the world. It's just one of those things where sometimes I feel like if you take a step back and you look at things from a historical perspective, movements don't happen overnight. States don't become as they are overnight. But it seems like in a lot of cases there's the tipping point. There's the tipping point of you've been moving ideologically or culturally in one direction for so long, and then you reach a tipping point where then you have these epidemics of, radicalized populations, grooming gangs going after young girls, which is why Tommy Robertson is in jail now.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah. and things like that. It's one of those things where I feel like I know you'll know where I'm going with this, and I want you to comment on it. One of the most popular phrases that you'll always hear, like in American history, is whatever bad thing you're worried about, whatever horror of the world that you're scared of, the answer always is, but that wouldn't happen here. How many times have we heard the phrase, yeah, but that's not going to happen here? Because
I've caught myself saying it.
Yeah, because we're not like that. But then, but things are happening today that I don't think we would have supposed even 5 or 10 years ago, that we wouldn't have supposed 15 or 20 years ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So what are your thoughts on the it can't happen here crowd versus they're banning guns, now they're banning knives in Britain, and Justin Trudeau is, going after pronouns and things like that. So how do you go from it can't happen here to, well, it happened?
Well, it could happen here, but I don't think it can happen here on a large scale. I think it would be localized. I think it would be, places like Minneapolis, places like San Francisco, places like Los Angeles, places like New York, where you would see that happen. Now, as far as gun grabbing, I mean, gun grabbing has already happened, in this country. There are certain places where you just cannot have a gun unless you have a lot of money and you can pay for the permit. Like, we saw happened in New York, where they were selling. The NYPD was basically selling permits to people for trips to Aruba and things like that. But in order for what happened in England, per se, or let's say all Great Britain, per se, I mean, there's a reason. I was talking to Roger Paxton recently, and we were talking about Alfie Evans. And he was talking about when medicine becomes socialized, and all he could think of was the picture of the police lined up outside of the hospital, and that they weren't going to allow the baby to be taken out. And I made the point that when I saw that picture, to me, it wasn't about the baby coming out. To me, it was about a mob going in there and taking the baby. And when I saw that picture, the first thing I thought was, and I think I made it into a meme and threw it up, is this is why they took your guns. This is why they took your guns. I mean, can you imagine them trying to do that in Texas or, here in Georgia or in Tennessee? I mean, people, they are going to have, they won't even think about it. They're going to have a rough time on their hands, and can it happen here? Sure, it can happen here, but I mean, I don't see grooming gangs roaming the streets of the Atlanta area without getting killed. Without them getting taken out. And I think that's the main thing is, when you look at what's happening in Great Britain right now, I do not know, and we were talking about before, why can the same person come from one country, the same country come here, act differently, and go to England and act differently? I've had people say, well, it's because they know we have guns and everything. I'm like, I don't think that has anything to do with it at all. But I think it would, if things were to escalate, that would have something to do with it. I think it would be a lot easier for that kind of thing to start happening in New York, although if you know anything about New York, New York has been able to cut down on crime in one way. They have 40,000 fucking police. I mean, when you go to New York, there's a cop everywhere. That's the only way. But think about it. Think about the economic calculation problem. How do you deal with that? I mean, how do you have all these police that you're paying an insane amount of money, and then when the crime goes down, you can't cut back on them. You can't say, okay, we're laying you off now. So and they're actually increasing them. So can it happen here? Sure, but they're going to have a civil war on their hands. I mean, they are going to have a civil war on their hands. The fucking cop would not go into Parkland because there was an AR-15 in there. In order for them to go around and start collecting they're going to deal with a lot of friggin' people that have, you know, and I mean,
a lot more.
I know someone who has 60 AR-15s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is one guy. He has 60 AR-15s.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen. Well, it just won't happen.
I mean, you talked about, you and Roger talked about the Alfie Evans situation, because me and myself and Sherry Voluntary had talked about that on her show for a little bit. And we kind of were drawing the same conclusion that you did, that, you know, like, first of all, like, your people who are back in the blue and preaching about the thin blue line, like the thin blue line is that line right there keeping the sick kid in the hospital so he'll starve and die. That's the thin blue line right there, ladies and gentlemen. But it's that without a doubt, yeah, that, like, they didn't need a line of police officers to overpower Alfie Evans or even his mom and dad. They have that to make sure that there's no crowd that comes along, a group of concerned citizens that says, well, hey guys, we're going in there to get them. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
And I could totally see a scenario where if there were a line of cops, you know, out in front of Vanderbilt in Nashville saying, well, we're not letting you take your kid. Well, when homeboy rolls up with all of his, I mean, we're from the South, when they roll up with all of his uncles and cousins and everything else, and they're all strapped, how many cops you going to need? You're going to need a whole lot more than 4 or 5 with billy clubs. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Because we're getting that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people, you know, and especially liberals, the anti-gunners, oh, you'll never be able to stand up against the government. Well, what the fuck was the Bundy Ranch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Bundy Ranch, they stood up against, the government had snipers out there. The people who came to support the Bundys set up their own snipers. I mean, the people do not understand what happened there. I had Jim Bovard on, who is one of my heroes, you know, I mean, the guy, come on. 10 books, investigative journalist, you know, old school Hunter S. Thompson kind of, you know, just a fun guy, you know, a fun guy to talk to, you know, and he laid it out, man. He talked about what happened at Bundy and how, you know, basically a private army, a militia stood up to the feds, and one guy got killed. Some people went. You know, they executed one guy. This was up when everything shifted to Oregon, and you know, some people went to jail, especially the one main sniper who there's pictures of all over the internet. But I mean, they stood up to him and they won. Mm-hmm. And you know, so you know, I mean, I do. Yeah, when I saw that line of cops outside that hospital, I was just like, that can't happen here. We're too fucking nuts, man.
Yeah,
we won't put up
over my dead body.
Yeah,
we won't put up
with that. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you know, I've never understood. Of course, I mean, it's easy for us to say this, but I've never understood the people who they think that they immediately shut down the conversation by saying, yeah, but the government's got drones and nukes and tanks, and so you can't beat them. When like have you not seen our nation's military history, like, since World War II?
Yeah.
Like, we've gotten into some incidents where things went sideways real fast and a whole lot of troops died and we were bowing out in shame, you know, thinking Vietnam, things like that, end of Korea. And then also, too, just from a practicality standpoint, like, you know, the sophomore philosopher who's in college, therefore he thinks he knows everything about the way the world works and you don't. You know, like, dude, do you actually think they're going to drop a nuke on, like, Boston because there's some guys running around Boston trying to revolt? Like, that would hurt them too, dumbass. Like, they can't just leave the country in ashes because then there's nothing to represent.
They did it in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
they did it in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they did it in Pennsylvania. Well, it's just, I think people overestimate the power of a centralized force like that when it's not fighting another centralized force, and I think people vastly underestimate the ingenuity of rednecks. Mm-hmm. We always, we like to make the joke and laugh that, if the Walking Dead were real and the zombie apocalypse started tomorrow, like, those rednecks down at the trailer park who you make fun of because they got their shotgun slinged over the back of their truck and they go duck hunting or whatever, like, you're making fun of them because they're some slack-jawed yokels.
They'll turn a 1981 Datsun into a tank.
Those are going to be the guys that save your life, right? Like, those will be the guys guys that keep you alive
With
when the
chicken
shit
wire.
hits the fan. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, and then people will bring up Waco. It's like, well, when it comes right down to it, those people were not fighters. They were mostly kids and women in there.
They didn't have a lot of guns in that place.
But when they went to the Bundy Ranch, I mean, the Bundys had some hard chargers, some friggin', ex-military who were ready to die to protect them. And that's the way, and that's what it mostly, I mean, if it comes down, man, all I can say about that Alfie Evans thing is that I don't think that could happen here. And as far as what's going on in Great Britain and especially England, I mean, I think it could happen in certain places where people have been defanged and they've been can't have guns, can't protect themselves. But I mean, for the most part, that's going to be really localized. And I think that they would I think that the government, if the local government won't do it, I think the feds would step in and put a stop to that really quick.
Well, one thing I want to, because we're running short on time, one thing I want to revisit real quick that you had said in the last show you had with us is you had made the point, there's lots of infighting. I mean, even amongst, in really, really loosely saying our camp, because I don't think anyone knows, I definitely don't support the libertarian part. I don't think anyone knows what a libertarian is anymore. But, our camp.
Bill Weld.
yeah, it's exactly. Bill Weld's a libertarian now, so I guess I'm not a libertarian. But, you had made the comment that the enemy is the state. That's the enemy. So if the ANCOMs want to stand side by side with us to dismantle the state and then peacefully go our own ways, and that's a big if on the end there. If they're going to peacefully go their own way and leave us alone after that, you would stand shoulder to shoulder with anybody who understood. Look, guys, the Neolithic state, that's the enemy.
Yeah, well, sometimes when you get more information, you might have to change your mind. The more I deal with these people online and I talk to them, they got to go.
You stay in your foxhole and I'll stay in mine.
Yeah. I mean, that's even too much. We need those people as far away from us as possible. I've actually thrown it out there to people, been like, thrown it out there to them and said, man, we'll just let's get together. Let's talk about what we got to do to destroy this state, and then we'll go our separate ways. And I mean, I actually literally had someone say, capitalism will still be a danger to me even if you're 1,000 miles away. So I don't have anything to say to these people anymore. They're not. I mean, I put it this way, I'm not going to go looking for them. If they come looking for me, yeah, that's fine, but I'm still going to be as suspicious as hell, and wonder exactly why and wonder if I'm going to get a knife in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I waffle back and forth a lot myself between, I feel like there's a difference between being principled and being a purist. I feel like if you're so unprincipled that you can call yourself a libertarian and then elect Bill Weld, then you don't get it, right? Like you're not in my camp if you think that. But vice versa, I also have the opinion of if one person that I genuinely respect and I value their opinion and I consider them a libertarian or even an anarchist, and they're having some sort of spat with another person that I respect, that I value their opinion, that's a libertarian and even an anarchist, then I kind of feel like, well, that's like, this is a net negative for the liberty movement, and there's some of that out there. Like, well, and there's more than some. There's a decent amount of genuine libertarian, even anarchists who can't get along seemingly with other genuine libertarian. And maybe it's just a byproduct of who we are. I don't know. I mean, maybe we're so independent and so not wanting to be ruled that we're skeptical of everybody and everything. But I feel like it's a net negative to liberty when we have those spats, and we've got to do a better job ourselves of circling the wagons if we ever hope to sway any reasonable portion of the population to leave us the hell alone and not, knife us in the back, as you put it.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's and I think I think you touched on it. It's we're so damn friggin' independent and individual. It's hard for us to do. I know I am. I mean, the amount of the amount of friends that I have that like actually know me. Mm-hmm. That's less than one hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's just the way I am. I mean, and it was hard. I mean, shoot, it took me a long time to get married. Mm-hmm. It took me a long time to have a long-term relationship just because of how private and how I want to. This is before I was before I was an anarchist, before I was a libertarian. I've always just wanted to be left alone, and I was just as happy being alone as I was being with somebody. I just, it's never been a big deal for me. I've always pretty much been a loner.
Yeah. Well, Mance, you're our friend.
Yes.
I don't care. I don't care what anybody says.
We're only one state apart, right?
I know.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Or something,
Well, I don't, because we're going to be actually going down at the end of June. We're going to be going down to the Take Human Action Bash, which is happening down there in New Orleans the weekend before the Libertarian Convention. And Scott's going to be there, and Tom Woods is going to be there. Dave's going to be there. It's going to be really fun. I'm not trying to twist your arm or anything.
I'm not going.
Okay, I'm not trying to twist your arm or anything, but
no, it's just I have I already have vacation time set aside 2 times. For one, the wife and I are going away, and then another time is I'm going over to Mises for an event. So,
well, the reason why I point that, because you say we're one state away, you're in Georgia, so so it's really cool because of course Mises is in Auburn, Alabama, Mance is in Georgia. Mm-hmm. We've had Mike Meharry from the 10th Amendment Center. Yep. He's in Lexington, Kentucky. Yep. Sherry's actually in Tennessee. She's in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. So, I guess I'm trying to end the episode on a positive note here that we are out there.
Yeah.
There are our people, the people that we identify with, mm-hmm. that we feel like, these people get it and they respect our positions, mm-hmm. and they understand non-aggression and things like that. So they exist. And in fact, I'd even go so far as to say I particularly identify with the other folks in the movement that are mm-hmm. from the South, because I think Southerners especially, maybe not so much anymore, but I remember being a little kid and having my dad, grandparents, older uncles who their grandparents and great grandparents fought the U.S. government literally, not figuratively, and so there was always that spirit still exists. It's harder to find, but it still exists. Just the concept, not even like, I'm not even getting into a Civil War conversation. Just the concept that you can fight a state because you think it's wrong. Just that in concept. You think you will fight because you think it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to find it in the North. You're not going to find it in the Northeast. I mean, maybe. New Hampshire, you might find. Find it. Even Vermont has. Or Maine. Maine has some definite some individuals up there. But, I don't want to fight. Yeah, I don't want to fight the state. I want to do everything that we can do to delegitimize it and to starve it. Yeah. And, the more people, the great thing about, the Trump phenomenon is a lot of people have become disillusioned. Look how many people didn't vote in 2016. That's awesome. I want more people to start using cryptocurrency to do, the smallest, transactions among friends. More websites hopefully start, accepting crypto and things like that, and just keep the government out of it. There's a lot that we can do. Mm-hmm. It takes effort. And it takes education. Yeah. That's why I write books. I wrote 2 books because I want to educate people. And even though the first book is just a complete workbook of trying to change people's minds about the state and get them turn a statist into an anarchist, a voluntarist. But the second book also is a warning, and I make it very clear, even though I'm talking about what's going on college campuses, I make it very clear in the intro that these people would not have any power whatsoever if it wasn't for an all-powerful government that, culture, politics is downstream from culture. Politics takes its cues from culture. So, it's I find it very, very important to educate people and I hate to be this guy, and I know I am this guy because I deal with a lot of people on a daily basis. If people start talking politics, I immediately go to the most negative stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want them to think about politics in any positive way whatsoever. I want to go to wars. I want to talk about wars. I want to talk about children dying of cholera. I want to talk, I want to talk about anything that will make them question why we, how much worse. Something I've become really, I really started talking about recently is when people start talking about, if there was no government, warlords would take over. I'm like, yeah, but at least we'd know who the warlords were. At least everybody would be able to look at them and go, hey, there's a warlord. Because warlords have taken over now and they run things now. And because of 12 years of government education, they don't know that they're warlords. They think that they're benevolent, they're benevolent leaders.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. Like I said, I don't care what anybody says about you, Mance. You're a friend of the gold standard. So we're going to be linking to both books. The most recently, The Kids Are Not All Right, a meme-enhanced primer on encroaching Marxism in the West. People are going to have to follow Mance on Twitter at @MNRothbard, because if you're not, you're just missing. You're missing out. You really are.
Can I add something? I was talking about crypto.
Yeah.
If you're a merchant out there and you have a website and you're selling a product, if you're on WordPress, you're probably using WooCommerce or something, something like that as a store. Please go to like coin payments and accept crypto.
Yeah.
I've started doing it. My website, freemanbeyondthewall.com/store. Both of my books are on there. They're available for crypto, 8 different cryptocurrencies. I would prefer, both of my books are on Amazon. I would prefer that you would go to the website and order the books for crypto. I will sign them for you however you want. If you want me, if you want me to say I love you, I'll put it on there. If you want me to call you an asshole, I'll do that too. But I would, if you want to buy these books, I would 100% rather you do it with crypto, because it's private and it's not using the money from the beast.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you have it right there, and we just pulled that up. freemanbeyondthewall.com is where you can find Mance and his podcast, and you click on that little store link /store. You got Freedom Through Meandom, the 31-day guide to waking up to liberty. You can click add to cart right there. You can pay with crypto. They're listed as $15, but yeah, I can't. If it was $14.98, we'd have done it, but $15. That's just
I know.
Yeah, the market has signaled that is too much. That's just no. That is nowhere near enough.
Yeah.
You are getting so much information distilled in a way that I feel like people can understand and appreciate by reading these books by Mance. Mance, you have inspired me. You are always welcome to come back, even if you want to use dirty language. We won't tell anybody. You're always welcome. Thank you so much for being back with us, buddy.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Is there anything else?
That's it, sir.
I like how every time I always end every episode by saying, is there anything else? And you're always like, no.
One of these days I'm going to have something.
One day you're going to have something, and I'm just going to hit the stop button on the thing, and then it's going to be in the episode.
Yeah, thank God he didn't.
So real quick, Facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is @Alan M. Mosley, where I really just retweet Mance. So really just follow me and get all the retweets from Mance that you can deal with. And then my website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
Yep.
Good?
Good.
High
Hasta
five.
la vista.
See you next week, guys.